I'm going to do away with my usual intro sequence today because I don't feel like messing with it. I think it's one of the things, maybe the only thing so far in my whole jump to Android and Chromebook and all that is LumaFusion. That's all I got, and I don't really like it. Nothing, it's hard to replace iMovie. Anyway, though, I wanted to make this video for a specific reason. Um, just to talk about something kind of important and serious. This is with regards to depression and all that, which anybody that's ever spent any time watching my channel certainly knows that's definitely one of my problems. It has been my whole life. But I want to talk about how I believe very strongly that music can save your life. We've heard that come from people before talking to their bands about how they felt that their music saved their life and all that, and it can sound corny or cliche to those that don't have that problem, that don't experience that degree of natural depression. And I don't mean depression as in just being depressed or sad about something going on in your life or something that you're going through that's really difficult and basically circumstantial things. I'm talking about a whole other level, the type of depression that you are very negative for no reason and easily depressed and blue and very dark, and it can get really dark. But for no apparent reason, it's just like a natural part of your character. For those of us that exist that way, it can be tricky. It's the type of thing that you sort of have, if you're that person, you have a certain empathy for those that want to end their life and just get it over with, that are looking for that sense of peace by escaping all of it. And the fact is, some of us give into that out of a desire for just a break, to finally just, not existing would be a better option, feel like a better option. And some people combat that type of darkness in all sorts of ways. Take religion, for example. Some people turn to some kind of God or belief or whatever. For me, that never worked. I don't want to get too deep into it, but I always thought religion was pretty ridiculous. I have never had a use for or an appreciation for religion, especially as we know it now, because, like, I think in the United States, currently the biggest, most common religions are Christianity and Islam. And I think they're both, for various reasons, ridiculous. I don't have the kind of mind that can latch onto some deity looking out for me or hope of some afterlife. Like that, all that doesn't do it for me. And then I also look at, like holy Bibles and things like that. Well, there are entire advanced cultures, advanced civilizations that formed and existed, entire cultures and recorded history that predate all of that. That amongst a gazillion other contradictions. So, long story short, religion never did it for me. I tried once. I used to go to church when I was a lot younger. Kind of as a kid. I think my mom sort of sent me to church for the free babysitting. But I even tried to believe in the concept of a God, and I find it all just ludicrous. My mind is not capable of grasping onto that. But my particular, if I had a savior, it literally, honestly, would be music. And I wanted to share that story of how I sort of figured that out. And if you're willing to hang out, listen, if you made it this far, I probably have a shot of actually talking to somebody and telling a story. But what got me started thinking about making this video right now is a simple post I came across on Instagram from a vinyl collector. And I will maybe post to my Instagram. It's on my About page here on YouTube. I'll stick it in the description. I mean, if anyone that actually follows my channel is interested in the life of an underconfident human, I just, randomly post things there. I usually don't do memes and stuff too much. It's usually just stuff in my life that I'm thinking about or doing or whatever. But anyway, um, the post was basically talking about how, music, and I think he was more specifically referring to vinyl itself, which is fine, but how, music and vinyl, whatever, isn't just about how much of it you own or collect, but having the right stuff to play at the right times. And I guess that post got my wheels turning a bit on the actual logic of that, because I was like, that's true. I mean, that really resonated. The timing of that post just made sense to me, because I've been saying pretty much that same thing my whole life. And I look at some of the bands that I like and I've always been really fond of, like even Prodigy. Keith Flint was awesome, amazing, amazing dude, and took his own life because depression got to him. Then legends like Robin Williams took his own life, and while we're supposed to look at that and just be sad and all that, which it absolutely is, at the same time, I kind of understand where they're coming from, because even people like that, like Keith Flint, that could put on a monster show, wild show, go wild, and yet was a good human and loved animals and had all these traits, but ended up ending his life. And Robin Williams, I mean, literally one of the funniest people in my generation and the last generation's history. I mean, just an awesome guy. He had the dirty humor for the adults and could make kids laugh as well. Like, and he had such a spirit about him, and took his life from depression. And I look at stuff like that, both for the sadness that it is, but I also kind of understand where they come from. I'm irrelevant. I am kind of a nobody in this life. I've always been an outcast of sorts, someone that no one really cares much about. Like, I mean, there's a few people, I'm not saying nobody, but could care about me or anything like that. But I'm just saying there's a point when other people's feelings towards you, what people think of you, doesn't matter anymore. I mean, if 1,000 people one day said, you know what, you matter, you're a great person, you're yada, 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 it wouldn't matter to me. My mind wouldn't even hold on to that and think about it, because the amount of darkness inside of me, the depression I have, just naturally, a very natural spring of sorrow, of darkness for no reason whatsoever. It takes over and kind of eliminates all of that, and all I can see is the dark space I'm in, and just kind of wish it were over. I've been in and out of that my whole life, and I can honestly say, after seeing that, Instagram post, I found a way to put it in words properly, and that's why I wanted to make this video, is that music did, in fact, and has countless times probably saved my life. Um, I'm being honest and saying that over the years I've gone back and forth with, I mean, the depression's always been there. I'm never really a happy, cheery person too much, but there are, like, waves in an ocean. There are times when I'm a little more on the fence about at least seeing positive traits or positive points in just life being over. And then there's other times I'm scared to death of dying because, like, something's wrong with me or whatever, and I don't want to die. So, all in all, um, I've thought about death and thought about what it'd like to be gone many more times than I've physically tried to attempt it. I've never I've never really gone there, obviously, because I'm still here. But the feelings and the thoughts of how to end my existence and get it over with, that, not a lot, but I've been there a handful of times throughout my many years on this earth now. I mean, I'm in my mid 40s. I don't know how much longer I still have to go. I've got health issues of my own and stuff and whatever. But even in the dark darkest times, even when I was really close to thinking this will be over very quickly, I can end this quickly, like that scary feeling of I'm about to die will pass very quickly if I just do it. But I don't quite get there. And honestly, my passion and obsession with music, literally since I was 4 years old, long story, which maybe I'll tell you that story, but started when I was four, you know, has really kept me kind of sane. It is something that my mind can latch onto, depending on the words of the song. Because sometimes with music, for me, it's not just about rhythm and beat and melody, and that's it. I think that's what a majority of your average music listeners probably, that's the first thing that gets them and pulls them in to get them listening to a song and under feeling anything about a song. But my feelings certainly are affected by that. There's some types of music I can't stand, no matter how well it's written, because I can't get past the music, like country. I can't. Country music does make my brain cells systematically commit suicide one by one. I can't do country music, despite how emotional some of the songs are. But all in all, though, I guess that does have to be an element in music that you need to grasp onto. But something that always reached me was also the words. And that's why I always had a certain preference, even before I was older, even when I was a kid, and it was just strictly hip hop for me. Um, I still needed a sense of like emotional intelligence and lyricism, the words of a song. There's not a whole lot of music I would say that really ever touched me that's simple to follow. Just really simple stuff you could listen to on the radio in your car in a bar or something. And I like deeper things. But um, I guess what I'm trying to say is that music, that's my message here, is that music is and can be that powerful. It's as powerful to me as a god or whatever it is to some people, or whatever their comfort is. You know, it's just an ironic timing too, because recently I was reading some things about La Santa Muerte and how this angel saint of death is praised for justice and equality and the downtrodden and all that. And that's, I don't know why that crossed my path when it did, but it was interesting reading. I mean, if that works for people, so be it. But so that got me thinking on religion and stuff, because I've never, I mean, it's a religion that doesn't have rules and restrictions per se, as rigid as like a church is. And so I was reading all that and interested in it. Just reading, the stories. I like the lore. And then this that was churning in my head earlier today, and then that guy's post, and I just something connected there, and I was like, I want to talk about this. I want to try to share a video that I know hardly no one will actually see, but why not? It's enjoyable for me, even if I'm not good at creating content to create. I like making stuff once in a while. So, um, but anyways, with that post that I made on my Instagram, I like summarize in a paragraph the relevancy of the statement in the picture. Here. I often do my videos wearing my battle jacket just because I've talked in the past about how important this thing is to me. I mean, it's literally me. Things attached to that post that I made on my Instagram. I took a clip of the song for this right here. Iron Butterfly, in the time of our lives. See the tombstones in the back and that patch has a particular story, and this is going back to around 12 or 13 years old for me. Um, as a little kid from 4 years old, reciting lyrics to songs. I mean, my mom was blown away by some of the stuff because she was listening to it, stuff that was really popular in the 80s. But I mean, the amount of songs I could recite when I was still 4 and 5, 6 years old, literally, that's my mama was always really surprised by that. And I was always obsessed with music, even at that age. I mean, collecting cassettes was far more of a thing for me, collecting them and looking at all the artwork and the booklets and how I'd organize them was a bigger obsession for me many, many, many times over than toys. I wasn't much of a playing with toys kind of kid. Um, I was a video game nerd, so I would say a majority of my earliest youth revolved entirely around music and video games. And that's while playing the video games, it was always music playing. Anytime we left the house, I would even have cassettes in my pocket because I wanted to have music with me in case mom would be in the mood to let me put one in the car stereo and listen to it. Um, when Walkmans started becoming a thing, I had one, and I never left the house without my cassette player. I had my Walkman when I was a kid, riding bikes, out rollerblading, whatever. I even carried it to school with me, which was absolutely not allowed, but I would keep it there so if I wanted to listen to music on my lunch break or something, I could. Um, Keeping cassettes in my pocket for no reason. I just wanted to have a cassette, like a certain cassette I was really fascinated with at the time, with me. That's the kind of kid I was. I mean, that was really probably strange in hindsight that I always, we could not go to a grocery store. Couldn't even go up to the store without me asking mom if I could go ahead and pick up a new tape. Um, and since I was all strictly hip hop as a kid, um, I would often try to get various artists' tapes because that gave me the most music I felt like. But then when I started getting into artists and bands, groups rather specifically, like the earliest I remember was Curtis Blow, Cool Mo D, Boogie Down Productions, and then later Third Base and Public Enemy. When I started really getting obsessed with groups, and I do mean obsessed because I was like listening to this stuff constantly. I'd wear tape out easy. I would then want to collect all of their tapes. There was no internet, so I couldn't reference, what all they had. I would just have to see it in the store to know it existed. But um, that was my mind, and that was a key part of me as a little kid and growing up. Now, when I started getting a little older, approaching 12, 13, 14 years old, my tastes started to open up a bit. I finally allowed myself to hear other music besides just hip hop, because rock and metal and anything else I just pretty much ignored. Didn't really care. I just wanted hip hop, and I lived and breathed hip hop as a kid. Because all those guys, the guys I were listening to, a majority anyway, when I started getting old enough to understand the lyrics, were typically more on the intelligent end of the spectrum. So they're fast and furious jerk off. But anyways, so I gravitated towards that. I didn't like gangsta rappers, and I wasn't into simple. Like I didn't like any of that. I liked. Like I said, I would really say earliest childhood stuff when I started getting older. I was reciting Public Enemy and KRS, all these different dudes before I was old enough to understand the lyrics. By the time I got old enough to start understanding it, I had a pretty established taste in my hip hop at that point. Anywho, though, um, but my dad, I remember he was really into, like, he loved a lot of old classic metal and rock, and Led Zeppelin was one of his favorites. And he had bought this box set that had all their studio albums, all the CDs, and these booklets, and it was a really fancy deal. And he was listening to that a lot in the home stereo, and which he had a hell of a setup. I mean, old school, and it was loud, it was banging. Every once in a while, some of those riffs, certain melodies, certain something would kind of catch my ears. But this is a weird story, but the very first time I realized that music could help me with my darker side of myself. So, of all things, I was a big Freddy Krueger fan. I loved Uncle Freddy. He was my favorite scary movie guy. Dad had shown me some of those when I was probably way too young to watch them. Bad parenting, right? I don't know, but he loved Stephen King, so I'd watched it at a pretty young age. Tommy Knockers, those movies like kind of scared me pretty good for a bit when I was real little. But anyways, so Freddy Krueger. One of the movies it was in this set that Dad had bought me was called The Final Nightmare, and there's a scene where this kid gets kind of sucked into a TV video game in his dream, and Freddy kills him, but it plays Inagata Devita. And I don't know why it was the weird organ or whatever that got me, but I really thought that song was cool. So I asked him about it, and he ended up buying me some Iron Butterfly music. Now, Inagata Devita is a cool tune, but that album that song comes from, a couple good songs on there. Most of that I really couldn't get into, and I thought this band's kind of eh. But then another album he had got me. I'd heard this song that was on this patch called "In the Time of Our Lives," and with my depression issues and how bad my anxiety is to boot, and a whole other story. But "In the Time of Our Lives" was a very is the version I used on my Instagram post is the live version. I like the live recording a lot better than the studio version, but regardless, it's a pretty dark song if you actually pay attention to it. Um, and something about how serious and dark that song is kind of, at least the way I interpreted it, hit a different nerve with me. It touched my person, as I put it, in a different way. It made me, it sort of changed my channel a bit. I started to, the way I was feeling that particular song at the particular time that I was listening to it and paying attention to it was the moment that I started to put together that whatever it is about me, that I'm so hopeless and so dark inside, that song sort of kind of approached it and made me feel a sense of comfort. Like I don't have the words for it. I'm trying, guys, but that that tune made me sort of realize that music has a whole different use, a different possibility, I should say, than just being entertaining and just firing you up and just sort of making your brain exercise and making you, give you energy. It has other purposes. And I don't want that to sound shallow because of, I mean, some of the guys I was listening to, like I said, the younger me, with the obsession with Public Enemy, for example, is ridiculous, man. Like, we used to make book covers out of brown paper bags for our school books, and I drew that freaking Public Enemy logo as best I could on all my shit, like all the time. But um, anyway, the messages and the consciousness and that stuff that Public Enemy, just as one single example, brought to the world, that's a very powerful thing. But I'm talking more, and I knew that stuff obviously by that age, but I'm talking more on a different level. How that Iron Butterfly song really hit my dark side, whereas hip hop never really got into stuff like that. Not, I mean, we get into deep emotions and depression and sorrow and hurt and stuff that, especially, that just exists in mass for no reason. But that song, so hence the Instagram post, and then hence this already outrageously too long of a video. Too long didn't read, right? But that's, anyway, from that point on, then I would occasionally find music that would serve that purpose for me. It didn't fire me up. It didn't improve my mood and make me feel good per se. Well, not like a shot of dopamine, and it was not. Again, I'm at a loss for words, but That's why there's certain songs and certain music and certain bands that I, thoroughly and loyally stand by, defend, and proudly honor and appreciate and listen to this day, because they have filled that space at times where I'm so broken and so done, just drained and done, that it helps. It's right there at the right time to help. Um, so that brings me back to that Instagram post. It's not just about collecting music for the sake of collecting music, obviously. It's about having the right music to play at the right times. That was true. Just the absolute truth. And while I'm at it, I got to share the story of that particular Iron Butterfly patch, because that artwork, that song in general, all of it, just that is correct. That was my first real moving experience on that side of myself, which is why I had that patch of that, But anyways, yes. So I guess if I could say anything, if anyone actually watched this that has the degree of darkness inside themselves, the absolute crushing, you know, just negative pull, the hopelessness that there's just no one can talk you out of it. It's not, there's no reason for it. There's always circumstantial sorrow, circumstantial depression, and heavier, more intense magnitudes of topic, like heartbreak and then someone hurting you or whatever. Those are all things that will inflict their own types of depression and sorrow for sure. I mean, this is obvious. But when you have a lifetime of such negativity for nothing, just because, and it crushes you to the point where you start to empathize with death and empathize with people that end their lives, look at them and say, I wholeheartedly understand why you could go down that road. That is the type of depression that can't be easily explained. I don't think there's a correct combination of words that really convey the depth of that existence. And music was my particular thing that has kept me more than once from wanting to terminate my own existence. Kind of sometimes sort of lock me back in just a bit. Just not perfect. It's not a perfect solution ever. Ever. It doesn't cure the problem. The problem is systemic and will be there forever. But it sort of eases it back a bit, kind of calms the waters a bit so that it's not so crushing. You always know it's there, but the right music at the right time can significantly ease the waters and put you sort of, you're just locked in enough to reality and what's going on around you, and locked into yourself just enough to not take that step. And there's only one or maybe two stories that I don't want to get into, that I kind of went a bit far with my particular degree of depression and hopelessness and all that. But I would say, though, that my biggest savior, if I had one, is definitely my music and how it has kept me going at the right times often. It's so magnificent, powerful. Anyway, I just wanted to ramble about that. I'm very sorry this video took so long, if you even watched all of it. But again, music was my particular savior. And again, I give that up to, I'd say, most significant as a whole, sort of falls on Clan of Zymox, and perhaps Type O Negative. That particular artwork for that back patch is also something that I don't look at that as just wicked or cool or something. It is, though. It's both of those things. But that artwork actually sort of tells a story to me, and sort of reflects a lot of things in an image, a lot of emotions, a lot of I draw meaning in that where someone else might not. Anyway, thank you for listening to my ramble about the value of music. Um, this is me, the underconfident human, signing out. I'll see you.